Yo, what's up guys? How's it going? So I want to talk about damage in this video, and I'm not going to talk about damage buckets because there's a million videos about damage buckets and what is multiplicative, what is additive, all that kind of stuff. We're going to talk about just adding all of our damage stats together to see how much damage we're currently doing, just either on average, and to see where we can potentially move numbers around to get the most out of our build in terms of crit, vulnerable, whatever kind of damage bucket you're in, right? So we're going to add all that stuff together, and I'm going to be using a website to do it. I'll put it in the link below as well, so you can kind of either do it with me or on your own, whatever. And I'm going to show you how to use it. So let's jump into it. So the website is called d4ut.net. Again, I'll put it in the link in the description below. So let's have a look at the website. So at the start, we see our champions up here. I'm a druid, so I'm going to click on the druid tab, and we've got all of our damage here. So it says average weapon damage. We're going to go back to our character. What is our average weapon? 2,740. So let's put that in, 2,740. Again, you can either skip ahead on this part or you can do it together. So here we've got damage scaling. So what is this number and where can we find it? I want to find out how much damage I can get out of landslide. So I'm going to use the damage scaler percentage right here. So it says 2,196 and then 27,129. And it says 150%. So that is your damage scaler. That is the number that you are going to put into your damage scaling here. Then we've got our main attribute. As a druid, I go off willpower. So I have 612 willpower. Vulnerable damage. Let's see how much vulnerable damage I have. So come into stats here. Vulnerable damage 90.1. So we're going to type that in 90.1. In the second part, we're going to put in the damage from our aspects. If you want to figure out your entire build, just put all of your damage aspects into the damage aspects part. So I'm going to do this now. I get 60% from my core skills when fortified. I then get 10% critical strike damage when in grizzly bear. There we go. Landslide does 12% increase, a bonus per hit. So I'm going to put, we got damage here in the additive tab. So let's bring up our damage stats, scroll down to about halfway here, and it says all damage. So this is where we're going to be starting from. So all damage 60%. Damage versus CC, damage versus crowd controlled, 115.4. Damage versus slowed, damage versus close, 70.5. Damage while werebear, 130.1. Okay, fantastic. So we've got all of our additive damage into the board now. Now, let's go over to our critical strike. And here, if you do have skills in your Paragon tree, we'll be adding those in here as well. So we got the first one as critical strike damage, which is 163.2. Now, my critical strike, my other critical strike multipliers are in my Paragon tree, and these don't add on to your critical strike damage as a base number. So we're going to need to add these in manually as well. So let's just jump into our Paragon tree here, and let's just zoom out. So what's the first one? Critical strike damage versus CC. So what we can do, we go up to our keywords here. See, I've kind of already done it already. We got keywords, we got critical strike versus crowd control. There we go. So we just want to highlight those two and then go find the nodes. They'll be highlighted like this. We're going to have to actually manually add these together. So you're going to have to get out a calculator or your phone. 10, 10, and 15. So that is 35 plus 10, 10, 15, 30, 35 plus 35 equals 70. So we're going to add that into critical strike versus CC. Now, critical strike versus vulnerable, I don't have that, but if you do, make sure to add it in. And critical strike damage versus core. So let's take off crowd control and then critical strike versus core. Close that. Do I have any? One here. Okay, so here's a quick thing as well. So you see that I needed to add these ones together. It's because it doesn't add that all together as a whole. If you've got a glyph in a socket and it affects other nodes, so you see here 5 dex, 8.3% extra crowd control, all of that is summed up in the top number there that's in green. So critical strike damage with core skills, this adds on to this. So you don't need to add any of these together. That whole number is all in there. 56.5, so 56.5. So we got these here. So we're going to need to add these ones back up again. It's highlighting this one up here just because it says earth skill. So that's fine. We're just going to add these ones up here. So 52.5. Critical structure with lightning, poison, and werewolf. So I'm not using any of those skills there. So that's completely fine. Right. So now that we've got all of our numbers and put them into the damage calculator, it will give us our numbers at the bottom here. Now, don't forget, these are average numbers, okay? So they're not like these are max rolls, these are min rolls, these are damage while buff. These are just like your average numbers of what you would do with like whatever you've put into the actual calculator itself. So some of them are like, oh, I do like 3 million crit. Why is it saying I only do 1? It's because you're probably stacking some skills and you've also got higher crit multipliers as well. So just take it as like an average number, which means if the average number is high, then we have something to work with here, right? And if that number increases, it means the higher end of our crits at the 3 million mark may potentially go up into the, you know, the 4 million mark as well. So here you can see my final crit damage is 1 mil. Fantastic. And I do 200k just standard damage, which is correct. How do we begin then to kind of like adjust things like that? So what we can do in this calculator, we begin to switch and change our numbers around depending on what damage bucket you want to change. So let's say we wanted to add, I don't know, figure out my trample slide does 160% increased damage while in trample. So then I put that in and then my damage goes up to 2,600,000 because I've added the 160% multiplier into our bucket. So we're going to be doing a ton of damage with that. We can also just take it out and say, for instance, I've got a 58% and a 97% damage multiplier, damage scaler, sorry, on trample. So let's say I want to figure out what my trample will do when going through all of these targets. So I just want to do like 97%. So trample's doing 600k when I'm going through a target. So I hope that allows you to have a bit of an understanding of how you could then begin to manipulate the numbers as well. Don't forget, you could change some of your weapons out. You could also change aspects and add aspects and take away aspects here. Let's say I wanted to move landslide earth pillars, strike a second time, do 11%. Let's say I wanted to move that onto a staff, for instance, then that would give me an extra 24% damage. Sorry, there we go. 24% damage on top of the 150% there. And it will then do 1.1 million on average instead of just doing 1.03. So you can begin to see how you can use the calculator to begin to move numbers, adjust numbers, what's going to be there, what's not going to be there. Do I want this on my amulet? Do I want this specific aspect on my weapon? You see where I'm coming from? So then you'll be able to get a better idea of what your damage is doing, where it's coming from, and the averages in the final crit damage there. So I would say that's kind of it for this video. I don't need to delve too deep into this because I'm not going to be talking about, again, damage buckets and all that kind of stuff. Just look at all the numbers, add all the numbers, and then begin to kind of move those numbers around and to see how much you're going to be getting out of the build. But guys, yeah, I hope you really enjoyed the video. If you did, give a like, subscribe, you know how it is. And I'll see you in the next one.